For those of you joining in over on YouTube, getting ready to go live once again on TikTok. Have not heard back from TJ. Don't know if I'm going to have a mod today or not. So this could be the wild, wild west. We'll see what happens. I'll do the best I can to block him, of course. Um, got a few things to talk about. You got Senator Marsha Blackburn in Tennessee saying she's going to start introducing what she calls the Doge Acts that are supposed to start the process of working with Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk about cutting government spending. They want to limit government raises. They want to go to a merit-based performance system instead of seniority and guaranteed cost of living. Force work from office, not work from home. None of it sounds good for the American government workforce, and they don't care about that. They want to look at the practicality of moving some of the offices and things out of DC and into other areas. So now you're going to have employees who cannot make that new commute, who do live in DC, but now they don't want to move to Nebraska to work in whatever facility that is set up out there, and I'm using that as an example. So now those employees are going to quit. It makes no sense. What they're trying to do in the name of efficiency is some of the most inefficient bullshit I've seen, and I've worked for some companies that were very damned inefficient. They want to go to merit-based raises instead of guaranteed cost of living or guaranteed yearly acknowledgement of pay, where they can say, well, we don't think you quite did good enough, so instead of your typical 8% cost of living or whatever cost of living is, we're only going to give you 3 because of based on your merit and your performance. It's a ridiculous idea for the government employees, especially some who do some very key functions. They want to freeze all government hiring for a year. No more hiring. So that would mean anybody quits, resigns, gets fired, passes, doesn't matter. If those positions are open, and it seems like it, they won't hire anybody to replace. Maybe some internal promotions for key positions, but that'd be about it. It is some of the dumbest bullshit I have ever heard. It really sounds like working in the private sector, and that's what they want to do. They want to look at privatizing a bunch of this as well. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson said he wants to be part of this Doge effort, and they want to cut 75% of government agencies. Cut it from 428 down to 99. Just seeing if I had any missed messages. None so far. I try to get to everybody as they comment. But cutting us from, 428 government agencies down to 75, or down to 99. Where did I hear they want to cut that number? Speaker Johnson himself was talking about it on Fox News yesterday. Heard it straight from him. And not all of the cuts, sure, there are going to be some things that they transfer around and move to other departments. But transferring it from department, to department is part of the point. It's the confusion they want. So one of the things they pitched was this idea when they shut the Department of Education, which I don't think they'll be able to do. Will Johnson be Speaker in January? All signs are pointing to yes, but they have to hold their vote on January 3rd. And if they only have 3 defectors, he may not be Speaker. It could be a major fight like they had, 2 years ago with Kevin McCarthy. And it took them 17 ballots to get Kevin McCarthy elected. First time in like 100 years. But moving the departments around, I think, is part of the point. One of the things they suggested was moving all like student loans and Pell Grants and all of that, if they are able to get rid of the Department of Education and move it into the Department of the Treasury. Okay, kind of makes sense because that has to deal with money. But when they move it to, the Department of the Treasury, now people aren't taking advantage. So when they don't take advantage and they don't need as big of a budget one year because they didn't spend as much, they can cut the budget the next. I believe he said cutting big government like 50 million to watch football hurdles. Didn't see that, but I saw the quote specifically where he was talking about cutting 75% of government agencies. But why is it that we have to always have the Republican voters and explain to us what they actually mean when they say things point blank? Hi, Debbie. You haven't missed much today. It just got started. Um, we're talking a little bit about something that Mike Johnson said on Fox News yesterday, and that he wants to be part of cutting like 75% of government agencies. We are a fiat currency issuer, MMT. If the country have the resources and labor, we can afford anything. I don't know exactly what you mean. Yes, and cut all of our leaders' budgets like Trump's private jet use. Yeah, that wouldn't happen. Uh, they don't want to cut things from their end of it. No, it's things that people would actually enjoy. Debbie says, wait, what percentage is he cutting? He said on Fox that he wants to cut 75% of all government agencies. He wants to cut it from, we've got like 428 government agencies. He wants to cut it all the way down to 99. Now, some stuff will get moved around, but moving it around and making it so people can't access those and you don't know how to do it, and now they have to uh, uh, figure it out is part of the point. So that way, when those budget numbers, let's say for Pell Grants, if by moving it around to the Department of the Treasury, now half as many people access the Pell Grant, that means the following year they can say, well, half as many people got it, so we can cut the budget by half. Sony says our currency has no backing. It's literally budgeted into existence by the House. Debbie asks, how can he do that? Well, it would take Congress, and I just don't think they have the votes to do it. Also said they were cutting stock trading among elected politicians. Now, if they did that, I would actually be on board for that idea. That should have been done a long time ago. And that goes for both sides of the aisle. Check out Deficit Delusion. I might have to. But I know the American dollar is not backed by anything other than the full faith and promise of the American government. That's it. The faith and credit of the American government. We haven't been on the gold standard in a long time. In a long time. There hasn't been anything officially backing it other than the faith and credit of the government. Musk said that Johnson said it will be something to look into. Well, I just know what Johnson said on Fox is what I read. Every Fed head will tell you it's only ones and zeros. Taxpayers don't fund Fed spending. Well, that's because we borrow to do most of our funding. We have to borrow. We're constantly paying interest on the stuff we borrow. Rasha says this administration hasn't been even signed in yet. Exactly. They haven't. They don't take power till January 20th. Well, Donald Trump doesn't. Rasha said, "Old Soul told me to follow you." Well, tell Old Soul thank you. That you're at least the second person I know she has sent my way. They are also trying to control inflation with income taxes. Yeah. Um, they're trying to do a lot. The problem is inflation's actually sitting really good right now. We're at about 2.6, 2.8%, something like that, which is right about where the Fed wants it. You need to have at least a little bit of inflation year over year. Some, not ridiculous percentages like we had in 2021, because if not, you start slipping into a recession or even worse, a depression. How much of Trump's agenda can Congress stop? Well, they can stop almost all of it. Quite a bit of things can't be done by executive order. It's going to take Congress. And it's not so much that they're going to block it and just say, no, we're not doing that. It's their margins are so slim. They have 3-seat margin in the House of Representatives. If everybody is there and present, if all 435 members of the House are there, all 220 Republicans show up, if three vote no, bill fails on something they want to do. And when you figure people that are out sick, you got Matt Gaetz has already withdrew, or he resigned from Congress, so he's out. That makes 2. Debbie says, I'm surprised MAGA isn't flipping out. Some are, but most still don't get it. They won't get it till it bites them in the ass. They have to face the real world consequence, and then they're going to start to see the real results. But they only have 3-seat margin in the House of Representatives. 2 when you get rid of Matt Gaetz. Okay. If 2 people vote no, and that's if everybody shows up, bill fails. If people aren't showing up to vote, which is common, they don't have a lot of wiggle room. What Hakeem Jeffries needs to do as minority leader is he needs to make sure that all 215 Democrats are there every time one of these pieces of legislation are up for a vote, and make sure we are voting as Democrats lockstep against some of the worst things. Because then it only takes a couple Republicans going, I can't get reelected on that. Oh, if we do that, I'm not getting reelected. So, that's all it takes. A couple Republicans going, I need to get reelected, and if I pass that, it ain't happening. And they say no, and whatever they're trying to do is dead. In the Senate, you got the filibuster, which is, that 60 vote threshold to end debate of a bill and actually have a vote on whether or not it's going to pass. Okay. You need 60 votes. They have 53 seats. They need Democrats to do that. Democrats ain't going to let some of this stuff go around the filibuster. They will abuse the filibuster just as much as Republicans have, which is why both parties will never want to get rid of the filibuster. They don't, because they know they'll eventually be the minority party and the other side will push their agenda through. No matter if the Democrat favors the GOP bill, or are you forcing them to vote as Jeffries tells them? I'm talking about the stuff that's absolutely dumb. Things like ending the National Weather Service. Things like ending the Department of Education. Some of the stuff that's going to have real world consequences. That, if they want to try to pass a nationwide abortion ban, those kind of bills, I guarantee you, it wouldn't take much arm twisting or even talking for Jeffries to get most, if not all, Democrats to vote in lockstep. To say, no, we're not doing those kind of things. I mean, sure, there are going to be some things. There's almost always bipartisan bills that get passed almost every time. And there will be some things that some Democrats will support. I just don't think the worst things that are going to be detrimental to this country, I don't think you're going to get Democrats to vote in favor of, because just like Republicans, they have to go back to their districts and get reelected. I say it a lot in almost every one of my lives and in a lot of my TikToks. Yeah. I talk about how they have to get reelected. Both sides have to worry about getting reelected in 2026. Midterms are coming. The votes aren't there to change the Constitution. There will be midterms. And how do you go back to some of these districts, especially if they start trying to cut what they call entitlements, like there hasn't been a bipartisan bill since Pelosi became Speaker. She forbade co-sponsoring. When I say bipartisan, that's not what I mean. What I'm talking about with there's always bipartisan bills is there are always, in every Congress, there is some piece of legislation that will pass, whether it's sponsored by Democrats and Republicans or not. There's always something that passes with votes by both parties. There's always stuff that passes. Even in times like now, when politics seem as divided as possible, they come together and they do pass some things because it needs to be passed. And you pass it with like 70% support out of both chambers. There will always be things that happen. In fact, with as divided as the Republicans sure seem to be, Hakeem Jeffries could have a lot of weight, throwing the bulk of his 215 seat minority behind some stuff. Only needs a few Republicans, and they could theoretically pass some things. Especially when it comes to things like funding the government, keeping the government open, things like that. Entitlement is our money. We put into it, so we should be able to get a return for when we're old. Well, that's just one entitlement. Social Security is one thing they like to call an entitlement. But when they say entitlements, they're talking about everything. They're talking about food assistance. They're talking about disability. They're talking about Medicaid, Medicare. They're talking about all of it. They're talking about money for heating assistance, anything. Pell Grants. They would consider some of that entitlements. Because they feel like people feel that they're entitled to that money, even though it's tax money that we have paid into, so the government can help us out when we need it. And a lot of those programs that, people enjoy now were put in place by Democrats, by liberals. Musk has threatened Republicans with primary oppositions if they don't get on board. Yeah, I don't think Musk is going to be a big player for very long. He can threaten all he wants, but at some point he's going to butt heads with Donald Trump, and Musk will be out on his ass. And he can try to primary all he wants. All that does is actually help the Democrats with a chance for the midterms. Because if you take somebody who's in office and you primary them out, let's say they're successful. Well, in 2026 in the midterm election, now you go into the voting booth and the person who's in office is no longer the incumbent, and now you have to actually look at the two names. Some people will actually look at it and do a little bit of looking and not just vote for the guy that's been there forever, or gal, or whoever. Not to mention, you could have a longtime Republican who gets primaried out, make a third party run and really screw things up. I can't stand Musk. He bought a president. A lot of people are saying that. But the only reason he's around right now um, is because Trump is getting something from him. I think it's money. Neil says, "Bro, you made a great point on Boomer the other day. Trump has the vocabulary of a sixth grader." Yeah. For those of you that don't know, I routinely guest over on the Rational Boomer. Yesterday on the Rational Boomer podcast, I was the guest, and I made a point on there that Donald Trump talks at about a sixth grade level. And when you have half this country that reads at a sixth grade level or below, they related to it. That's one of the reasons they resonate with it so bad, is because, you can talk to them, but when you're talking to them at a high educated level and you're using big, complicated words, they're not going to get it. Debbie says we literally have to dumb it down to get votes. Kinda. I think that's part of what Joe Biden's charm was as a candidate. It wasn't that he was a great candidate, but despite the stutter and despite the effects of age, he had that old folksy feel. He was talking to the every person. He wasn't, he wasn't like Obama giving a great speech. Obama can give a great speech, but he talks like an educated person. Biden didn't nearly as much. And I think that was one of the things. Same with Donald Trump. Donald Trump speaks at a sixth grade level. And it's a sign of a narcissist, but it's also true. If you listen to him talk, everything's either the very, very best or the very, very worst. And oh, this is so awful. It's awful. It's awful. I mean, he needs a thesaurus is what he needs, but he uses very, very basic vocabulary. And for whatever reason, people resonate with that. He relates to morons, basically the majority of our country. Nah, I wouldn't even say half. I'd say about half of the ones that bothered to vote, but but there's a lot of people that don't know what's coming. Did a TikTok earlier today where I talked about an article I read out of the New York Times where they were talking to some Republican legislators. This is true. Trump is at a sixth grade level. Exactly. Yeah. That's what he speaks at about the level everybody is reading at. Like half this country reads at a sixth grade level or below. Less than 50% of voters voted for Trump. Yeah, I haven't seen the final tally, but it's definitely looking like he won the popular, but it wasn't a momentous landslide like he likes to claim. He squeaked one out. And he got about the same amount of votes as what he got in 2020. How did he lose in 2020? BS 2024. Simple. It was easier to vote in 2020. Everything was mailed to you. A lot of states mailed everything you needed to vote. People didn't have to leave their house. Plus, you were in the middle of the pandemic. People were paying more attention to the news. They were paying more attention to what was going on. And they saw the effects of how he handled the pandemic in the moment. When it comes to politics, Americans have about a 6-month memory. Unfortunately. They do. They have about a 6-month memory. Dems had a better turnout in 2020. He didn't gain a single vote. Dems just didn't turn out. Yeah, that's a big chunk of it. Some of them were mad about how Joe Biden was pushed out of the race. They were mad about how Kamala Harris became the nominee. At least some. Some were mad that she spent the last 3 weeks of her campaigning almost exclusively with Liz Cheney and they thought she shifted too far right, and she didn't lock down enough of the left-leaning vote. He lost in 2020 when pretty much everyone was watching him. Name recognition sealed his win in 2024. That was part of it. I think Democrats didn't do nearly a good enough job showcasing Kamala Harris ahead of 2024. They should have been showcasing her more on the off chance that something just would have happened to Joe Biden. Trump calls us the elites to program his supporters to not trust educated Americans. Exactly. He thinks that by calling us the elite, even though we're just, for most of us, no different than any of the MAGA supporters. It's just that we're a little more educated. That's it. But we're in the same boat as them. They just don't want to realize it. What is your take on Hispanic male turnout for Democrats or lack thereof? They bought into the idea of the other. That they got their green card or they got their citizenship, that they were now better than those that are coming across the border, the new immigrants. Because they're here and they got their citizenship, they're now better. And I think they bought into some of that. And that's at least part of it. If you can convince people that they're better than somebody else, even when they're struggling, that's saying something. I think a big chunk of his supporters actually weren't paying attention to what he said. I mean, right after the 2024 election, two of the most highly Googled terms in Google is can I change my vote and what is a tariff? And Nick gets to truffle shuffle his ass out of here. Come into my live and just insult me. That's the do your own research party for you. Yeah. They tell you to do your own research, but they don't do an ounce of research. Their research is Facebook memes. Neil says to Nick, bro, relax and go away. Oh, he's already went away. I already blocked him. Because people like that don't add anything to the conversation. They really don't. They come in, they throw insults, they say something that doesn't add anything like Trump 2024. And when you try to talk to them about facts and figures and all of it, they don't want to listen. But yeah, we were talking about the idea of them cutting 75% of government agencies. And I was saying, I think the point is, Neil says, do you agree that the Democrats need to come up with a candidate or candidates early, like soon? Wouldn't be a bad idea. If they did, a couple candidates to run in the primary and narrow it down to a couple of candidates, because one of the reasons Donald Trump came to power in 2016 in the first place, he was a joke He was a ridiculous candidate, and they're like the odds-on favorite to win going into primary season in 2016 was Jeb Bush. Everybody thought it was going to be Jeb Bush with it's a Bush name recognition, etc. Well, then they go into the primary with like 10 people starting in Iowa with the caucus, something like that, and they spread the field so narrow that when 30% of the people were voting for uh, Donald Trump, he was winning those primaries at like 35% because the field was so thin. And then by the time everybody dropped out and tried to coalesce around one opposition candidate around him, well, damage was done. He had too big of a lead. Do you think Biden will pardon all of Trump's enemies like Fauci? Uh, could. They really could. It's been talked about who Joe Biden is going to pardon ahead of time. But even pardoning him is not going to be enough because look at what James Comer said. He wants to still pull Hunter Biden in front of the House Oversight Committee and question him because now with the pardon he can't plead the fifth. So now they think they're going to do something that way. So now you pardon everybody. Sure, they may not face criminal prosecutions, but these Republicans are still going to try to make their lives hell. So I don't know what the best answer is there. Let's see. They were totally blinded by lies from Trump. Great debate, brother. Yeah, they were. He lied right to their face. They didn't listen to it. They'd explain to us what he actually meant, was interesting. I've never seen a politician outside of Donald Trump where you've had to have other people explain what the actual words he said meant. And we say, well, he said this. Well, what he meant was. With the elections over, why are the Republicans still losing seats in the House? Well, they finally finished counting like 2 days ago. Some of the races were so close they triggered automatic recounts, things like that. They have it down to 220 Republicans to 215 Democrats in the House of Representatives. You need 218 to be in the majority. Well, they lost a seat with Matt Gaetz resigning. There will be a special election, I believe, in April. So that's one seat gone. You have Elise Stefanik got pulled. She's gonna go. I don't remember which position she's getting nominated for, but she got nominated for a position, so she's gonna have to resign her seat to take that position. She can't do both. You have Waltz, I think is his name, was another Republican member of the House picked for another cabinet position or an advisor position or something. I don't remember what position it was, but that's another seat gone. So now you're looking at 217 to 215, which means a single no vote by any Republican and it fails. One. This is the thinnest majority by any party going all the way back to the late 1920s in the Herbert Hoover administration when they crashed the stock market. They have such a thin majority. And if he keeps picking more people to go into the cabinet and to go into advisory positions, they could end up to where, for a time, the Democrats have the majority while they wait for special elections to pan out. Like, they've tried to talk him into picking fewer people because they're going to be not able to do much as is. And they don't get along. Debbie says, I noticed Trump wanted same-day voting and same-day results when he ran. Now he doesn't care. Yeah. Well, the only reason he wanted same-day voting and same-day results was because last time that's what cost him the election. This is the same guy who said of COVID testing, well, if we do less testing, we'll have fewer cases. He just wanted them to stop counting the votes. He didn't care about whether or not he won. He doesn't even care about the logistics of having same-day results and counting and all of that happen when you have a country that crosses over 6 time zones. Rajesh says, I thought he'd flip out with these late results too. No, he doesn't care. He doesn't entirely care that the Republicans have control of the House and the Senate, or by what margin. I think he only cares that they have control just enough to keep the Democrats from being in power. But even then, I don't think he would care as much about him winning the presidency. And I don't even know that he wanted to win the presidency as much as he wanted to be a candidate. Because now he can't run again. He can't continue to campaign for re-election. He can't keep going. In 2028, there will be a new Republican nominee. I don't know who that is. I am not joining their live. There'll be a new Republican nominee in 2028. It will not be Trump. Now, some people think it might be Don Jr., something like that, but if he craters the economy at all, well, if you think I'm wasting people's time, I won't waste any more of yours. He ran to get out of legal woes. Yeah, exactly. TikTok Rocker Girl says, what if he doesn't leave the White House? Well, here's the thing. Come January 20th, 2029, or whenever they end up, if they 25th Amendment him, whatever they final vote tally is done for that, or if they vote to convict him in an impeachment, whatever time frame is set there, when that is done, or 12 noon, January 20th, 2029, when that's over, Donald Trump is no longer president. Whoever is the next president will stand there, recite the oath of office, and the minute they become president, they have all the powers. If Donald Trump refuses to leave the White House, well, he would technically be a trespasser. Did that troll say you're wasting your time? What did he think he was doing? MAGA is crazy. No, he actually said I was wasting everybody's time. Everybody who's watching me's time. Well, I said, if you think I'm wasting people's time, well, I won't waste any more of yours, and blocked him. I block them all. I'm sure if I didn't block them all out of my comments and out of my lives and everything, I'd have probably way more people, in my feeds, and I'd have way more, things for the algorithm. It'd drive the algorithm more. But they don't add to the conversation. And all they do is get your videos taken down. They get your lives ended. And stuff because you say stuff that they don't like. Neil says, bro, you're my favorite co-host on Boomer. Well, thank you. When I started, Mike and I were talking about this. When I started being on the Rational Boomer podcast, he's like, well, you were kind of a little timid about it, and, it took you a bit to get into your own. And I think what really got me was starting to hear people comment about me being on there. I'm like, oh, people actually want to hear what I have to say. So then, that made me feel great and made it easier for me to start doing things like this. And I appreciate everybody who enjoys me over on the Rational Boomer podcast, as well as, following me here. I always look forward to you being on the Rational Boomer. Well, thank you. I try to get on every week or two. Just depends what my schedule looks like. Faithology says new follower. Well, thank you. I appreciate all the followers. And the gifts. Let's see. Jewel says if Dumpy Pants tries to do away with Social Security, it will have to be approved by Congress, correct? I believe so. I believe that would take an act of Congress. And with their margins, I just don't think it happens. Plus, even if they could just do it on simple majority in both houses of Congress, the fact is, baby boomers and older are the biggest voting bloc for Republicans. They are their biggest voting bloc and the most loyal voting bloc. They will show up every time to vote. You tell them that there's a special election, on the fourth Tuesday of whatever, and they'll be there. They'll show up. So you start messing with their Social Security, their retirement, and say, hey, we're just going to cut it? No. They will keep that trend of voting up, but they will be voting against those people. Hugo, yeah, good speech from San Francisco. Oh, well, thank you. Eugene says, how in the world is Elon and Vivek saying they're going to cut $2 trillion not in cabinet? Oh, they're, they got a whole bunch of concepts of plans of how they're going to cut a whole bunch of stuff, but they don't actually have any power to cut anything. But they want to cut over $2 trillion in spending to offset the $2 trillion tax cut that they gave to rich people last time, and the potential $4 trillion tax cut they want to do again. Let's see. I missed a couple here. Joe and his wife are freaking out on MSNBC. They've been popping off on their audience. Well, good. Glad they're freaking out. They deserve it. They should never have gone down and kissed the ring. Kathy says, God, I hope you're right. That's the only thing you survive on. I'm guessing talking about Social Security. I'm just saying, I'm looking at it logically and going, they have to run to get reelected. And how do they tell their biggest voting bloc that they got rid of their Social Security? Unless they do something where, well, we're going to end it after people born after this date or whatever, and nobody else gets it. Like people 30 and under no longer get Social Security. Well, you do something like that, and you potentially piss off the up-and-coming voter. Like, I know they're dumb, and I know they're corrupt, but the one thing that you can guarantee they care about more than anything is getting reelected. And they're constantly looking at what they can do to get reelected. I also think that they overplayed their hand already. They've only got a 3-seat majority in the House, and there's special elections coming. And they're out here saying, Speaker Johnson was on Fox News saying he wants to cut 75% of government departments. Take us from 428 government agencies to 99. Well, he's out there saying that now, with 3 special elections coming. If by some miracle Democrats win all 3 of those special elections, they have the majority in the House of Representatives. And if the Democrats somehow get the majority, uh, they end up, blocking everything. TFOF is planning on a coronation, not an inauguration. Well, he thinks that's what it is, but it's not. They've been running on canceling SSI for years. How seniors ever voted for Republicans? Oh, how? Because they always assumed, like everything else, when it comes down to it, well, they mean I'm good. I'm a Republican. They're not going to cancel mine. They're going to cancel the next generations, or they're going to cancel, you know, the people I don't like. They're going to cancel those people's. But mine, I paid into mine, so I deserve mine. I'm going to be okay. They wouldn't hurt me. I'm one of them. Some of them think that way. Or they weren't old enough to actually draw on it yet. And then they get there and they go, "Oh no." But they still vote, and they vote for the same party because they always have. And they just hope that they're wrong every time. And because it's never happened, they just like, well, they've been saying it for decades. It's not going to happen. It's like overturning Roe. Democrats had a chance Democrats had a chance to codify Roe back in 2008 or 2012, somewhere in there during the Obama term. He had 60 votes in the Senate. It was only for a short period, but they kicked the can down the road because they figured it would never fall. You can't imagine everyone having Social Security dropped. Yeah, I can't either. The money being paid in now is what boomers receive in Social Security. It's not like there's a surplus. Yeah, that's because people like Reagan ended up borrowing against Social Security and saying, well, we'll pay it back later, and later never came. Republicans seem to think the bad policies will not affect themselves, but the other. Yeah, exactly. They are convinced that it's never going to hurt them. It was before Reagan. Well, I thought Reagan. They might have done it before Reagan too, but I know Reagan borrowed against it at least once. MAGA Republicans only want to be in government, so we pay them and they get good benefits. Yeah. Kathy says, 78 never voted Republican. I want my children to get the same rights we fought for decades for. Yeah, I agree. Now I've voted left, right, and center. I voted for independents. I have voted for Republicans. I have voted for Democrats. But I'll tell you, I've never regretted a Democratic vote. They spent it every year in the general budget. Don't entirely know what you mean by that, because I know Social Security is supposed to be completely separate. What happens with the funds if they cancel SSI? Like, what do they do with all the money paid in? Who knows? Who knows what would happen with it? I mean, I guarantee you the one thing that wouldn't happen with it, we won't see a refund. Our next president is still older than my grandparents. What a joke. Well, Bill Clinton was president when I graduated high school. Bill Clinton was president. He is younger than Donald Trump. Is it really final? Trump is really the future president, or is there a chance Kamala will be? Well, I haven't seen anything that indicates anything else is changing. I haven't. I hear some people saying, "Well, this looks iffy. That's that looks iffy." Um, but I haven't seen anything where it's definitive and where something looks like they're doing anything. So it looks like, as of right now, it will be final. Now, there's a date coming up. I'm not sure what the date is here in December, when all the states will have to have their each individual election certified. And when that's done, all it's left is for them to count the votes on January 6th. But unless something changes between now and then, I don't think anything's going to happen. At best is if something happens to Donald Trump between here and there, and he's not allowed to become president, but J.D. Vance would be the president elect. How can we have a felon as president? It's mind blowing. Couple reasons. One, a major party is willing to run them as a candidate. And pre-Donald Trump, that never would have happened. Two, there is nothing in the U.S. Constitution that says a felon can't be president. Now, after the second term of Donald Trump, it is entirely possible that something gets passed and some kind of a constitutional amendment gets made to where they change that. But right now, there are only 3 requirements to be president. You must be an American citizen, a natural-born American citizen. You must be over 35. And you must have never been elected to the office of president more than twice. Or have served out less than 2 years of another president's term. If you were a vice president that became president, then you could get then you could become president. Yeah, there's no requirement that says you can't be a felon. I'm waiting to see how you finish that thought. But yeah, there's only those 3 requirements. So I could see maybe after the second Trump presidency that they pass a constitutional amendment or start the process, adding another requirement saying no one with a felony conviction could serve as president, something like that. I don't know. I think you're going to see after this term, though, you're going to see at least some changes. Listening to Shady Vance's voice hurts my ears compared to Trump. Yeah, it does hurt your ears a little more, but at least it's coherent and, you kind of know what he's trying to say. Why couldn't Biden have did that as far as making an amendment? Because passing a constitutional amendment is hard. The Constitution has only ever been amended 27 times. It takes 67% of both chambers of Congress. And once 67% of both chambers of Congress have agreed on an amendment, then it goes to the states, and 38 states have to agree on an amendment. It is hard to pass a constitutional amendment. Do you think Republicans didn't hold Trump accountable because they thought Dems would? Could be. Typical Republican strategy, they ruin everything and expect the Dems to pick up the pieces. Trump wants America to be an authoritarian society. just like Hungary. Trump wants to be a dictator. He may want it, but they don't have the ability to make it happen. They can't change. They can't change the Constitution. They don't have the votes. And certain things he can't do with an executive order. He needs Congress, and they just don't have the votes in Congress, realistically, to pass everything, because they're not going to get everybody to vote for all of their things. It's just not going to happen. Debbie says Republicans can't walk and chew gum. No way they can pass an amendment. Yeah. The modern Republican, no. The turtle all but said it after January 6th when he said, let the legal system deal with Trump. Yeah. That's what he said. He chose to not convict Donald Trump. And if he would have, well, that would have been the end of Donald Trump right then and there. He had the power, but he expected the legal system to deal with him and the Democrats to clean up their mess. And then Merrick Garland sat on his hands for 2 years. Now, I already blocked him, but, Chris comes in saying Trump won popular electoral Senate House. People have spoken. Y'all lost. Move on. Well, you can move right on out of my live, but the people didn't really speak. How much influence do you think Musk will have when the former guy gets into office? Some, until they butt heads. Donald Trump is easily manipulated. He doesn't believe it. He doesn't believe he's easily manipulated, but he is. You get the right person patting him on the back saying, people think you're a genius if you do this or that, he'll do it. He's all about his appearance and how he looks. Manti says, Turtle thought Trump would just fade away if they didn't convict him. He was wrong. Yeah, because they haven't dealt with a candidate like Donald Trump before. Not really. They are used to losing politicians kind of falling from grace, and that's that. They thought he would sulk off to Mar-a-Lago and that would be the end of it. I bet McConnell was pissed we didn't prosecute Trump. We all know they would have. That they would have if it was a Dem. Yeah, well, that's the thing. Merrick Garland sat on his hands for 2 years. Said, I don't want to look political, so I can't do anything. I don't want to go after the guy Joe Biden just beat in the election. We saw what happened on national TV. It was clear. He should have gone. Diego says, you for or against? For or against what? But Merrick Garland should have gone after Donald Trump quick, fast, and in a hurry. They definitely against. Neil says, Garland is the reason why Trump is now going to be our president again. He's a villain. Yeah, he sat on his hands, did nothing for 2 years. We thought the investigation was just going on behind the scenes, and it was just taking its sweet time because, they're trying to build an airtight case against Donald Trump and all the sitting members of Congress and all of it, and it was going to be this big thing. Then all of a sudden, he finally gets some pressure after the J6 committee releases their report, and he goes, oh shit, I got to do something. So he grabs Jack Smith from The Hague, where he was prosecuting war criminals, and brings him in, and in 10 months, he's got indictments brought. Stewart says our military swore an oath to protect and defend the Constitution from terrorist, foreign and domestic. Well, it's actually from all threats, foreign and domestic. Um, and yes, they do. They don't swear an oath to the president. Donald Trump thinks they should, but they don't. Their loyalty is to the Constitution, and the first line of that Constitution says, "We the people." We granted the government any powers they have. Sue says, Garland did sit on his hands. Yup, he did. Manti says, do you think Mike Pence knew about Trump's plan for January 6th while vice president and it didn't stop it? Maybe. Maybe. I don't know if he knew all of it. I know he definitely didn't know about the part of them trying to, to go after him. I think that backup plan was the thing he wasn't aware of at all. When I heard Trump was running again in 22, I laughed, believing a young candidate would save us. Well, thank you for the gift, but goodbye, Diego. Oh, he's already gone. Yeah, he dropped a gift in my live. Thank you. I already did. I already blocked him. But we're definitely not on the same page. Too bad Garland didn't prosecute when he was sworn in, when everyone was paying attention. Yeah, if they would have gone after him as quick as they could have, you could have had this case been over and done with by midterms. One of the things I was expecting, kind of, was, I figured things were going behind the scenes and it just took time. And I thought for sure, after the midterm elections, J6 committee comes out with their report, and I thought they were going to step on the gas and Donald Trump was going to get an indictment almost immediately. I thought sitting members of Congress, all of it, right? Then we find out, then he appoints Jack Smith, and we find out basically he's starting from scratch because nothing was done. Good Lord. Merrick Garland was the wrong person for Attorney General. Neil says Trump ran for one reason and one reason only. Stay out of prison. He's a piece of shit. Yeah. That's why I said I don't think he actually wanted to win the presidency as much as he wanted to run. Because every time something came up, he was able to send out a fundraising email. Help me with this. Help me with that. Help, you're a great candidate for president. Fundraise. And then you turn around and I think he wanted to lose and then immediately announced he was running for 2028 to keep the fundraising going and then to be able to go into his court cases and go, well, see, I'm the candidate for 2028, so you can't touch me. Debbie says, not to mention the documents. How long did Trump hoard them? Wasn't it a year or two? Yeah, it was like a year and a half to 2 years before they raided Mar-a-Lago. And it wasn't even really a raid. It was a scheduled search where they worked out with Secret Service and with Trump's team and said, hey, we have a search warrant. We want to come and do this. We want to do it where it's not going to be a big public spectacle. We're not going to wear all of our gear. And we're going to do this nice and peaceful, like we'll do it when Donald Trump's not home. It was all arranged. If it was a true raid, Donald Trump and his team would have had no advanced warning and they would have showed up with a battering ram and knocked down a door. Our best hope is Trump gets removed and JD becomes the most hated man. Oh yeah. If something happens, either they 25th Amendment or they have to impeach and remove Trump, either way, the person who's going to get the blame for removing Donald Trump is going to be J.D. Vance, at least in MAGA's opinion and uh, opinion. Well, Andrew, you can go cry somewhere else. Oh yeah, I forgot. We only knew about the documents until Trump posted it on social media. Yeah, that's just it. Um, we wouldn't have even known about the search if it wasn't for Donald Trump. But he immediately had to make it political, call it a raid, and lie about how big and bad it was and everything else because he wanted sympathy. Coffee Man says Biden should have fired Garland the same day as pardoned his son. No, he should have fired Merrick Garland the day that he appointed Jack Smith as special counsel, and uh, should have fired him that day for not doing his damn job. He doesn't deserve to be allowed to retire. Well, that's true. I mean, hindsight being 2020, he should have been fired back then, but he should get fired either way. But the time to do it was 2 years ago when Merrick Garland finally got around to appointing Jack Smith as special counsel, and then the investigation went, and we find out Merrick Garland had sat on his hands for 2 years. If it would have been me, I'd have been like, what in the hell have you been doing for 2 years? I thought you were investigating this. I thought you were doing something. But instead, Joe Biden just went, yeah, okay. Does Trump get the same presidential burial? As of right now, yes. There was a thing they were trying to pass that would have taken that away. And there is something to be said if he gets impeached or removed or something like that, or if they 25th Amendment him and the Republicans have to do it, and he leaves in disgrace, that they could do something, but Congress would have to pass something that says he is ineligible for the full honors of a presidential burial. As of right now, I believe he still is. If it wasn't for the pressure from the J6 committee, Garland would have never done anything at all. Jules, you are absolutely correct. He sat on his hands and did nothing. Rasha says, oh God, that's crazy. He doesn't deserve that level of respect. No, he doesn't. Especially not after the way he treated, Arlington and just pushed his way in. Trump is the only candidate in history where half the country will be thrilled when he croaks. I think it's more than half. A bit early to bury Trump? Well, the question was just asked if he gets what kind of a presidential burial he gets when it happens, because it's gonna happen at some point. It happens to everybody at some point. Yeah, he's going to end up being one of those presidents that he is already considered one of the worst presidents in history. Trump is incompetent and a freak show, which is good news for Dems. Yeah, He's incompetent. He's a freak show. It's a circus. Debbie asks, is Melania going to be in the White House this time? Last I heard, no. But I don't know. Somebody said they thought she was soft launching a divorce idea against him by not moving into the White House, that they're going to end up divorcing. And, well, he wouldn't be the first bachelor president we've had. He'd be the first one to get divorced while in office, but that's the least of his notable accomplishments, and I use that term very loosely. John says it's not even a circus, it's a sideshow. And not even a good sideshow. Like, if you were writing this for a sketch comedy show, half of what he's doing, the sketch comedy show, would go, no one would believe this. We can't do that. It's not, even for a laugh, it's not realistic enough to get that laugh. Melania will be in New York City hanging out with her tennis coach who looks like Barron. You know, if that's what she wants to do. John says it's all meant to distract from Heritage Foundation puppeteering the whole thing. Maybe, but they don't have the votes to do a lot of what they want to do. And it's going to be, hard fought for whatever they do get done. Debbie says, I hadn't heard that. That divorce will be a circus. I hope Melania tells all. Well, it's not guaranteed there's going to be a divorce. There was speculation by some people that was part of her plan because she wasn't going to live in the White House this time. Hot Mess Express says Idaho State University did away with their DEI offices. Iowa State did the same. Basically said student-led organizations can do the same thing and put all of the resource. Basically said we're funding nothing and we're going to close all DEI things. Some of the stuff for DEI included having language interpreters. Rasha says, what? They took away DEI? Really? Yeah. I know Iowa State did in response to a law passed here by Kim Reynolds, because it was all about the appearance of something. And Republicans, specifically the MAGA Republicans, have this weird idea of if you bring somebody else up to even, this side that was up here already is now less. And that's not the case at all. If they cancel DEI, they better do away with legacy admissions. Yeah, they should, but they won't. DEI includes more than people think. Yeah, some of the things involve something as simple as translators and making sure the documentation is available in languages that people speak. Melania leaving Trump. That was a rumor. I haven't heard it confirmed. Rasha says, what's legacy admission? So legacy admission would be something like if my dad graduated Harvard and I applied to Harvard, regardless of my transcripts, because he was a graduate, I can get in. That's a legacy admission. Giving alumni, children of alumni favorable treatment. That's how a lot of people end up in the schools they pick is, their parents went here, their grandparents went there, and it keeps being made easy because of, the bar is so low. For some schools, the legacy admissions get in, regardless where their transcripts would not always allow them in. You get into top schools based on your family. Some of them, at least a certain number, they make it way easier for you to get in. Not a guarantee that they let everybody in that's a legacy, but they lower the bar of admission. So you can be a D student and buy your way to a top school. Kind of. Hot Mess Express says my child's school superintendent made the saddest video about his worries for our schools and Trump. Yeah. Well, Jay boy, if I'm putting you to sleep, you can go to bed then. You don't need to be here. Hot Mess Express said he basically said teachers' jobs are on the chopping block. Yeah, that's the thing that with Donald Trump's claim about schools and transgender surgeries that never made sense. When you talk to most parents, they will say, our school's underfunded. It needs more money. We need money for the schools. We need money for the schools. And yet they'll still say, but I heard these other schools are doing these surgeries. They can never point to a specific school. It's always someplace over there. But they always believe that it's happening, yet they all know their schools need money. Doesn't make any sense. Someone actually thought they had surgeons on site. Yeah, none of that makes sense. I mean, we talk about it several times in my lives. Different parents have come in and said they couldn't give my kid a Tylenol without calling and confirming it was okay. You think we can... you think they can do a major surgery? A life-altering surgery in the school? Like, no, it doesn't happen. But some people believe it because a buffoon said it, a buffoon who speaks at a 6th grade level. I mean, that's kind of the thing. We talked about it earlier, but he speaks at a 6th grade level. So when he says something like that, imagine it, you go to school, you send your little boy off to school, and he comes back, your daughter or whatever. Yeah. Because he's speaking at such a low level, they buy into it. Stop insulting sixth graders. Yeah, you're probably right. John says my 5th grader is more articulate than him. I'm pretty sure my dog has said things that are more articulate than Donald Trump, but I'm just saying. Debbie says gender reassignment surgery is upwards of $100K. What public school can afford that? None. But it's always, with as big as the country is and everything, when they stir up this fear of, well, it could be happening somewhere, these people start thinking that it is happening, but it's always over there. It's, it must be, can't be my state or my county, but it's actually in, California or whatever. It's actually wild that so many people in this country want their kids to look up to Trump. Yeah, that... beyond me. Notice how they attack public schools but not private schools. Oh yeah. That's why they want to do voucher programs. And with the voucher programs, what they want to do is me to say, I want my share of tax money that would go to my community's public school. I don't want to send it to the public school. I want to send it to this private school over here instead. And send my tax money over there. But then nobody comes in and fills in that gap of funding for the public school. They want public schools to fail because private schools can decide who comes in. Private schools don't have to follow the ADA and the guidelines from the Department of Education to make sure everybody can have an education. That's what public schools are for. They want the money to go to private schools so they can teach the things they want to teach there the way they want to teach it, but they don't want the money to go to public school to help everybody get a good education. Debbie says private schools don't have banned books either. Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of the private schools, they're not banning the same books public schools are because you don't hear about it. Because the gullible people that they've gotten in on these book bans and all this stuff are the ones sending their kids to private or to public school because they can't afford the private school and they would never pass admission standards. There's a couple comments up here. Maybe. I don't know, lost it. I try to get to them all. Does the same apply to charter schools? Yeah, I think so. I think charter schools are just a variation of a private school. John says, my kids will lose free breakfast and lunch because of Republicans, but hey, the price of eggs. Yeah. You know, here in Iowa, there's a program, federal program that well, Nathan, if you don't trust me, you don't got to stay. There's a federal program that gives like $30 a month or $40 a month over the summer per student to families on SNAP benefits because it costs more to feed kids when they're not getting breakfast and lunch at school. All Kim Reynolds had to do was say yes, sign a form and say opt in, and all the SNAP recipients in Iowa that have students in school would have gotten the extra benefit. She said no. They want to do feeding boxes and other options. Hot Mess expresses Idaho refused that program because they were worried they could buy a Monster drink with it. Yeah, Kim Reynolds, our governor, said something similar. They want to limit what foods you can buy on food stamps and with the benefits. And Debbie says Tim Walz has free breakfast and lunch at his schools. Exactly. They do. And that was, I thought, one of the things that was going to help push Kamala Harris over the finish line. They care about the price of everyday things but are against free health care. Yeah, it doesn't. Well, they're against Obamacare, and a lot of them. They love their Affordable Care Act. What happens if parents have a voucher but their child is refused admission? Well, no, the voucher doesn't get you into the public school or into the private or charter school. It just dictates where, like if I took the voucher program, I could dictate where my tax money goes. And the school could take the voucher and say, well, I want Analytical Iowans' tax money, that his share of the tax money to go to our school instead. So that chunk goes out and doesn't go to the public school anymore. It goes to the private school or the charter school. Doesn't help getting them in to the private schools. It just makes them better funded, at least the way I understand it. I could be wrong, but that's the way I understand it. Let's see, did I miss something? Wait, what? What parent wants their money to go to a private school when their child is in public? Well, I had that conversation with my parents actually. Now, they are both in their 70s, retired, obviously. Don't have kids in public school anymore. And they prefer the local private school. And they think they should be able to have their tax money go to that school. They have no kids in the fight. Except their granddaughter, my niece, goes to the local public school. So they would be taking money out of the budget that would help teach her. But the way they look at it is, well, we like the school over there, so we should put our tax money over there. But we're not raising any kids. We're not sending any kids to public school anymore. So it doesn't matter. They want their kids in private schools but complain about gas prices. Some of them do, yeah. I saw a TikTok right around the time Trump was declared the winner, where a gal was like, oh, I can't wait for Trump to be back in office so I can eat all these groceries, and made a big thing about how she was going to just scarf all these groceries as it was all fast food. None of it was actually groceries. And it's like, oh, well, you could afford it to do the TikTok, so what are you saying? Rasha says, I'm assuming parents who want vouchers don't understand how it works. I think some of them think it's going to help them get admitted into those private schools for less. That if they get more funding elsewhere, it'll lower their, tuition, things like that. Our schools are woefully underfunded. We need to be funding our schools a lot more. And it's just the money's not there. They need to do a better job with that money too. The problem is when it gets to the state level, they find ways of pulling from the block grants that's supposed to go to education. And of course, every layer has its own cut. And, they get, the money doesn't trickle down far enough. Debbie says, voting for something without understanding it, that's MAGA for you. Yeah, that's why the top two most Google search terms after the election were, what's a tariff and how do I change my vote? Hot Mess Express says, I have a family member who was a teacher who voted third party and now she is regretting it. Yep, in the find out stage. Funny how that works. Sue Smith says, how much of lottery money is allocated to schools? I think it varies by state, and I don't know the actual total number. I know that was one of the things that convinced a lot of people to get on board when they wanted to bring it into varying states is, well, we'll use the money for schools. Hot Mess Express says, I warned her too, but she didn't listen. Yeah, that's the thing. You tell them and you tell them and you tell them, but they're convinced you're wrong until it hits them in the face. She says, and lazy. I don't know what you mean by that. The fact that you get a voucher for private school, it's not going to cover the entire cost. Well, even if they do have scholarships, things like that, yeah, it's not going to cover the entire cost. Frida says, Republicans have pushed to privatize public schools for decades. Yeah, they have. They have made a war against education. And clearly it's working because we have some dumb people out there. We are now in the FAFO stage of the elections. Yeah, we're in the find out stage. Unfortunately, a bunch of us who didn't fuck around are also going to be finding out. Debbie says, MAGA cheered for defunding the DOE. Yeah, which I still don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it's a possibility, in part because they just have such thin margins in Congress. I don't think they can get it through. Now, if they had some major margins, maybe, but I just don't think it's going to happen. It's going to be a tough one for sure. Russia says, the voucher doesn't cover full tuition cost. This voucher makes 0 cents. Really, pretty much, you hit the nail on the head with that. What happens to student loans if they do defund the DOE? They were talking about moving it over to the Department of the Treasury. No, they're not gonna refund anybody's student loans or forgive them, anything like that. They want to move it to the Department of the Treasury, but I did a TikTok right before I went live, and I said, the confusion of moving everything around is the point. So they put loans in the Department of the Treasury. Well, now Treasury's got to figure out how to administer it and do everything, because I don't think they're going to just move the department that handled loans from education to the Treasury. They're going to have to re-come up with everything, because they want people to not know how to access it and not take advantage of those benefits. So and I'm making numbers up, I want to be clear. If they have 10 million students a year that get student loans, well, by moving it all around, if next year, after they move it all, you only have 2 million students that got loans because they couldn't figure out how to make it work, well, the following year when they go through the budget, they can say, well, instead of 10 million students, now we only had 2 million. Well, they don't need nearly as big of a budget, and they can cut funding. I don't know how I'm going to cope with the daily chaos for the next 4 years. Focus on the things that we can actually do, and go from there. Focus on what we can do, and focus on what they can't actually accomplish, and don't get swept up in the chaos and the bluster of them saying they want to do this, and just keep focusing on the reality of where they have the votes to do it. You're going to see them fail at doing a lot of this stuff, and then we have to point out that they failed and laugh at them repeatedly. Rasha says, Trump said he wants students to pay back their loan forgiveness Biden gave them. Can Trump do that? I don't know. I don't think so. Because Biden didn't pass anything new. Everything that he did was all stuff that was pre-existing in law that predated even Trump. Some of these laws were going back 20 years. They just weren't they weren't calculating things right. He just said, hey, do an audit, figure this all out, and find these groups of people that qualify for these things that are already existing laws and make it happen. The Trumplicans will catch hell for these 2 years. Then they will vote like they were supposed to. Yeah. Except they're going to catch hell during the first 2 years. And then in 2026, Democrats more than likely will retake both chambers of Congress. Debbie says, I can relate. My anxiety is off the charts already. I can't think about what it'll be in 2025. That's why I keep focusing on what they realistically can do. That's why I say things like they don't have the votes to change the Constitution. So there will be midterm elections. They don't have the votes to pass an amendment to allow Donald Trump to run for a third term. It won't happen. And just looking at what they can do and analyzing it all and go, hey, okay, these things are bad if they make it happen, but can they really make it happen? Okay, probably not. So let's focus on the little bit they're going to get done. I mean, during Trump's first term, they had a bigger margin in the House of Representatives. I think they had about what they have in the Senate, and they couldn't even agree long enough to keep the government open, and they shut the government down. So there's that. You know what I mean? Like, just because they say they want to do something isn't going to guarantee that it's going to happen. They just won't have the votes. They can't get along with themselves. Because the far right MAGA extremists, they don't want anything in the middle. Nobia says there are lawsuits ready for this administration. Wouldn't surprise me. And that's what couple of the things like they want to do. Okay, they want to do some kind of denaturalization, mass denaturalization. They floated it out as an idea. Well, Donald Trump can't do that with the stroke of a pen with an executive order. Can't do it. He can try. Courts are going to laugh at him. Okay? They can't just change how citizenship works with an executive order. That takes Congress, or that takes Congress to do a amendment. Either way, they don't have the votes. They will be in court more than they will be in chambers. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to be held up in court. And Donald Trump is not going to have a good time of it. I don't even think with some of the things that this Supreme Court would be willing to side with him that bad on. Do you think we'll have a shutdown? We were on the verge of a shutdown every 6 months last Congress. I know they have to pass something. I don't think they've passed anything yet. I know they had a time frame to do it. I hadn't heard that they agreed to fund the government, but I think they will. They'll probably kick it down the road to March again. But then come March, when they have their majority, they can only lose 3 votes, 3 Republican votes to pass any funding bill. So, and they've already said, some Republicans are already saying, like, we're not going to vote for a big funding and tax bill that includes big tax cuts again, unless they're offset by spending cuts. Well, when they don't get their way, they're voting against it. All Democrats have to do is go along with them. As far as if there'll be a shutdown, I have no idea. But I wouldn't, it wouldn't surprise me. They shut the government down the last time. The last time he was in office, they couldn't agree on funding. Deegan says, will Trump destroy our... I'm not sure what you're asking about. Debbie, how do you not fund the government? That's the bare minimum. Most government shutdowns are led by Republicans. How will the mass deportations take place? Where will they start? No idea. And the minute he even announces it, they will end up getting challenged in court. There'll be a lawsuit almost immediately. It'll be tied up forever. And there'll probably be a court-ordered injunction against any attempts to start it. And then when the court of public opinion comes down and brings the hammer down on the Trump administration and the Republicans, somebody will pat him on the back and tell him he's looking like a dumbass, and he'll back off. Are they going to take away Social Security? I don't think so. Just because, I keep saying it, but Republicans have to get reelected. And the largest voting bloc for Republicans are senior citizens, baby boomers and older. They just don't think I just don't see it happening. You take away Social Security, and then that entire voting bloc's never voting for you for however long they've got. And that's your biggest dedicated voting base who shows up every time. I just don't think they're going to risk it. Rasha says the last Trump shutdown was about the wall. Trump might shut it down over immigration. Yeah. Again, it's going to take funding. He can't just do these deportations. It costs money. Congress controls the purse, specifically the House of Representatives. So when he goes, I want funding for these mass deportations, and they say, go fuck yourself. We're not spending the money. They could end up in some kind of a shutdown. What could actually happen in that situation? It's theoretically possible. Is they pass a spending bill, Donald Trump vetoes it, they go back, and with Democratic help, they pass it around his veto to keep the government open. If they can live long enough to vote Dem without SSI, a lot of old people won't make it. That's at least. There's going to be some that could be in a risk group, I guarantee it. More than likely, he can veto a spending package. I didn't know that. Well, it's technically a law. So, yeah. That's why whenever there's like, oh, there's a threat of a government shutdown, we got to get it passed. You know, there's usually like, oh, we got to get it passed by midnight or the government shuts down. Well, the government won't really shut down until 8 a.m. the next day. They get it passed and it's going to Biden's desk. He'll sign it because it's a law. President has to sign it. They can veto it, just like any other law. But typically, outside of Donald Trump, most presidents are smart enough to not veto spending packages, especially when it's about not shutting down the government. But again, that's outside of Donald Trump. He kept calling on Congress to shut the country down. That's how McCarthy got ousted. Yeah, because he thought if they shut the government down, Joe Biden would get the blame when he was the one yelling for it. He has no idea how politics really work. He doesn't even understand really how the court of public opinion works. He just thinks if he's loud enough and if he can point the finger and point blame, then he can get off scot-free. Well, now it's going to be all on him. Moriarty says Trump said he would eliminate people's tax on people who are on SSI along with stop paying tax on overtime and tips. Yeah, he said that, but he can't unilaterally do that. It's going to take Congress, and I don't know if there's the votes to do any of it. As far as stopping the overtime, one of the reasons he said he wants to stop taxing overtime is they had a plan for a 160-hour work month. They want to change it. We're used to a 40-hour work week, right? So if you work 41 hours in a work week, that last hour is overtime. Well, they want to change it to a 40-hour or 160-hour work month. So from the first of the month to the end of the month, until you work over 160 hours, you don't get a dime of overtime. And then, what they'll do is they'll work you 50 hours the first week, 50 hours the second week, 50 hours the third week, give you 10 hours the last week. Hey, no overtime. But they got you to work the overtime those 3 weeks and just do offset scheduling. That's how these companies would operate. There might be some outliers that would pay the overtime that would be not taxed, but very few. But again, you wouldn't see it till the very last check of your pay cycle. Now, do I think they're going to get that passed? No, because I don't think they'll have the votes because they got to run on this shit. And how can they end up going back to their voters and saying, hey, we took away your 40-hour overtime rule and we changed it to this thing that's worse, but please vote for us again. I just don't think it's going to happen. As far as no tax on tips, it wasn't about your favorite waitress down at your local restaurant or your favorite waiter or whatever, or your coffee person, whatever. That wasn't who was going to benefit from the no taxes on tips. Remember, the Supreme Court ruled this year, I believe it was, there was a bribery case where they ruled that a bribe after the fact was actually a gratuity, not a bribe. So, they want to find a way to change these big multi-million dollar, billion dollar bonuses that these CEOs get, that the rich people get. Instead of calling it a bonus, we're going to rephrase your contract so it's a tip. Oh, so our stock price doubled this year. Well, here's $1 billion tip, and now you don't have to pay taxes on that. That's what they want to do. It has nothing to do with the common person. Ms. Singleton says that's going to cause the crime rate to go up. Yeah. People, when they're desperate and they're hurting for money, they do desperate things. Things they wouldn't normally consider. Tony says it's in Project 2025, what this man is talking about, the 160-hour work month. Yeah. But beyond it being in Project 2025, J.D. Vance himself was talking about it. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's one of their ideas. Sue says exactly, a war on words regarding tips. Yeah, they want to find a way to get the rich people more money tax-free. It's not about us. It's not about the everyday person. A lot of the people that rely on tipped income, Kamala Harris wanted to do away with the tipped wage. Tipped minimum wage is still I think it's 2 something or 3 something an hour. They don't even have to pay them 7.25 if you get tips. And then they only have to bring you up to minimum wage if you have a bad night. It ain't about people like that are in those kind of jobs. Kamala Harris wanted to get rid of that rate, that tipped rate, and raise not only that minimum wage, but everybody's minimum wage. I guarantee I would be surprised to see a minimum wage increase the next 4 years. Which means by the time a Democrat gets back into office in 2029, the minimum wage will have been at 7.25 for 20 years. 20 years. Minimum wage should have gone up a long time ago. The minimum wage was intended to be the livable wage for a person to be able to support a family of 4 and cover all their basic needs. I guarantee you can't do that on 7.25 an hour on a 40-hour work week. Rasha says, I saw a leaked video of Trump promising donors to make them more rich. Greedy. Yeah. That's just it. He's going to make them more money. Miss Singleton asks if I'm married with family because I'm a good person. Nope, it's just me. Well, come here. Oof. Me and this beautiful pup here. That's it. This is Cecilia. She was a rescue. She is beautiful. Oh, goodness. Whenever I guest over on the Rational Boomer podcast, almost every episode she makes her presence known. She pops in for a minute just like that. Watch out there now, you have an admirer. This beautiful girl beside me? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Wouldn't have it any other way. She still does the excited puppy tippy tappies whenever I walk in the door. Oh, oh. Guess I didn't catch what you were saying there, Sue. Rasha says, "Is it true some people on SSI don't have their checks taxed?" Um, I don't know, but I think if they don't have it taxed, um, when they get their check, I think they have to file their taxes at the end of the year, either way, and they have to pay it at the end. I think. Not 100% sure on that, but that's what I think. I would, if you know, I know a lot of people who do it the other way. Some people do it both ways, but ultimately, if you owe the taxes, you still have to pay it one way or the other. Oh, they have an option to pay now or pay later. I believe so. Not 100% sure on that. All right. Rasha says Kamala wanted their in-home health care covered. Yeah, I know. Talking to my folks, their house has been paid off for a while. But one of the things they're always concerned about is if something were to happen, that the nursing home would get the house. They'd have to sell the house to cover their care, and everything they worked for would be gone, just in case they needed in-home health. If it was covered under Medicare, there'd be a lot fewer people that would need the nursing home facility care and could do a lot more on their own. It should be covered. It's sad they won't get their in-home health care coverage. They won't right now, but I think that'll come back around in 4 years with the next Democrat running. I think whoever runs in 2028 for the Democrats is going to have to run and lean pretty far left, because they went right with Kamala Harris, and nothing against Kamala Harris, but just the appearance of her being out there all the time with Liz Cheney, and it clearly didn't work. So they're going to have to go farther left. Hopefully that can be a priority in a Dem administration with the home health care. Should be. I've been saying whoever runs in 2028 almost needs to do is run a New Deal style platform. Sue says, "Enjoyed your life. Have a good night. Catch you next time." Well, thank you for however long you were here. You have a good night. If you want to catch the live in its entirety, it will be up over on my YouTube page, Analytical Iowan on YouTube. There is a link in my bio. I post all of my lives up over there, as well as all my TikToks and some other videos as well. Debbie says, Medicare for All was super popular when Bernie ran. People were excited about it. Yeah, and that's the thing. I really wish Biden would have been able to get Medicare for All, but didn't happen. We got what we got because people were scared of losing their insurance coverage, because they were convinced it was going to be something worse. We need to go to a Medicare for All system, so where you shouldn't have your insurance tied to your employer. I know people who refuse to leave a job because they don't want to have to wait the 6 months or 2 months or 60 days, whatever the date is for each employer, to start up on benefits. In fact, I know somebody who is currently without insurance, will have insurance come January, but has gone all year without it, even though they took a position at their job that offered it because of how it was structured. They don't get, because they started mid-year, they don't get the benefit of the new insurance plan until first of the year. Like the fact you shouldn't have your insurance tied to your employer. Debbie says, I've been there myself, stuck in a job I hated but couldn't leave because the insurance was good. Exactly. Insurance is good, it pays out, or you're undergoing something, or you're in the middle of testing for something and you don't want to deal with it. I know people who get stuck because they're afraid of going without. Eugene says Blue Cross Blue Shield not covering full anesthesia anymore. Oh, at least one group of Blue Cross Blue Shield has said that. But I don't know if they're going to end up, when they get butchered in the court of public opinion, if they don't end up reversing course, that they're going to be the ones to decide how long surgeries could take and how much anesthesia to administer, etc. I think it's ridiculous. It's just another way for them to end up making more money in their minds. This is why we need to go away from private insurance. Private insurance doesn't make decisions based on our best health and decisions. It's all about whatever makes them money and turning a profit. All right. Well, I'm almost at the 2 hour mark. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I wasn't planning to actually go this long, but we got through it. I want to thank everybody for joining me. Been a great conversation. For those of you that have been here basically the duration, I really appreciate that. For those that came in late, this will be up over on my YouTube page, Analytical Iowan on YouTube. There is a link in my bio. Like I said just a little bit ago, I post all my lives up there for those that come in late, miss part of it, etc. So I hope you enjoy. I hope you guys enjoyed yourself, Miss Singleton. You have a blessed night as well. Debbie says this was fun. I'll tell Old thanks for the good suggestion. Well, tell her I say thanks as well. She sent a few people my way now, which is amazing. So, I appreciate it. Again, I hope you guys all have a good night. This will be up over there, and I will catch you guys the next time I go live. All right, we just wrapped that up. It was another good live. Thank everybody for taking the time to be in there with me. I hope you enjoy it, and I will catch you the next time.